Sometimes, instead of persuasion, what you need is inspiration. And inspiration you can think of as kind of a combination of charisma and clarity of thought. So charisma, I know Jamie was talking about pseudoscience earlier. There's plenty of pseudoscience about charisma. But there's actually also a fair amount of real science that leads us to understand things about charisma and how it's perceived. It's mostly hidden in the literature around leadership. And this woman, Olivia Fox-Cabane, went through and compiled it all together in a book that was in the Dent Library a few years ago, but it grew legs and wandered off, I think probably because somebody found it useful. But the way she boiled it down is charisma is a combination of presence, power, and warmth. But I don't want you to think about it quite that way. I want you to think about it this way. When you meet someone, you're asking yourself 3 questions about that person. You're asking them, do you like me? Can you help me? And are you present with me in this moment? Now, the interesting thing is, you're not asking these questions consciously, and the person you're talking to is not projecting those answers consciously either. So most of what goes into charisma is actually internal. It's about creating an internal state in your mind, in your body, that will convey in subconscious terms the answers to these questions about presence, power, and warmth. So I'll give you a few quick tools. There's a lot more. Actually, I do recommend the book if this is your jam. But for one, presence. If you find your attention wandering when you're in a moment where you need to be present and projecting charisma, check on your toes. Wiggle them a little bit. I promise you, nobody will notice, but you will be anchored back in the moment, and your presence will return to what you're doing. If you are in a conversation, power, pause before you answer a question. Try to get 2 seconds. Third, warmth. Imagine something truly sympathetic about the person or people you're with. Maybe imagine that they lost a child recently or a parent. It doesn't have to be real. But going through that process of imagination will release a little oxytocin in your body. That's a connection chemical. And it will raise your level of warmth, kindness for that person, and that will be seen and felt by the person you're with and make you more charismatic. So charisma, clarity of thought. One of the things that really impresses me with an entrepreneur, for example, is when I can tell that they've reached the simplicity on the other side of complexity. This comes from a quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr., who said, for the simplicity on this side of complexity, I would not give a fig. But for the simplicity on the other side of complexity, I would give all I have. And it's this recognition that in order to understand something well enough to be able to communicate exactly the pieces that are needed in exactly the right way and no more so that it can be understood, you need to go through that messy middle. You need to get through this place where everything's swimming in your head and you don't know which thread to follow or even start with. But if you get there, if you get that clarity of thought, if you get to that simplicity on the other side of complexity, it's powerful and inspiring.